Hello, friends. For many years, Western military planners believed they had air combat figured out. They trusted stealth aircraft, huge defense budgets, centralized command systems, and complex supply networks to guarantee control of the skies. That belief is now being seriously questioned. Something unexpected happened, and it forced even the most confident defense experts to rethink their assumptions. Behind closed doors, including inside NATO-linked planning groups, the mood has changed. There is less confidence and more caution. The reason is simple. A small country with a limited defense budget showed a different way of fighting in the air, one that challenges some of NATO's most expensive and sensitive air power ideas.
What surprised people wasn't extreme speed, advanced stealth, or billion-dollar technology. It was proof that modern air power may depend more on smart design and flexibility than on money. The aircraft at the center of this shift was built around one harsh idea. Future wars will be messy and unpredictable. Air bases may be destroyed, satellites could be jammed, command centers might be attacked, and supply lines cut. In that kind of chaos, many modern air combat strategies start to fail. While most Western air forces depend on a few well-protected bases, this jet was designed to operate from highways, frozen roads, and short or damaged runways. During recent exercises, it showed it could land, refuel, reload weapons, and take off again in less than 20 minutes, using a very small ground crew. That level of simplicity and speed caught many observers off guard.
There was no massive support system and no special infrastructure, just speed, flexibility, and the ability to survive. That alone drew attention. What truly concerned planners was the bigger strategy behind it. Instead of concentrating air power at a few large, vulnerable bases, this aircraft allows forces to spread out, operate from many locations, and keep moving. That makes planning attacks extremely difficult, because there's no fixed pattern and no reliable target. Many modern fighter jets rely heavily on secure data links, advanced logistics, and carefully maintained bases. They are powerful, but only as long as those systems remain intact. The Swedish approach challenges that dependence entirely. During joint exercises, this difference became clear. In environments where GPS was unreliable, communications were disrupted, and central command was weakened, the Swedish Doctrine didn't fail, it adapted. Pilots were trained to act independently, make quick decisions, and continue fighting with minimal guidance. This matched the reality of modern warfare, where cyber attacks, jamming, and satellite disruption are expected. Any system that cannot function under those conditions becomes a liability, no matter how advanced it appears. Cost added another layer of concern. This aircraft is far cheaper to buy and operate than most fifth-generation fighters, allowing more aircraft, more pilots, and greater long-term resilience. Quietly, defense analysts began asking hard questions. What if air superiority is no longer about perfect technology, but about endurance, flexibility, and staying power? This wasn't panic, but it was real concern. The Swedish model doesn't just challenge enemies, it challenges allies. It suggests that future wars may reward adaptability over prestige, simplicity over complexity, and flexible command over rigid control. That idea alone is disruptive. It forces militaries to rethink training, equipment choices, doctrine, and even political commitments tied to massive defense programs. What surprised many observers most was the reaction from pilots who flew alongside it. Some called it unfairly practical. Others pointed out how quickly it returned to combat compared to larger, more complex jets. There was nothing flashy about it, just constant efficiency. History shows that real military changes rarely arrive with dramatic moments. They appear quietly during exercises and evaluations, and are only recognized once they can no longer be ignored. Attention grew not because the aircraft was unbeatable, but because it proved something uncomfortable. Smart design, clear strategy, and realistic assumptions can still outperform far more expensive systems. Once that idea took hold, planners began thinking differently. Instead of focusing only on major air bases, they started looking at highways, remote roads, frozen terrain, and civilian infrastructure as possible launch points. This shift challenges decades of air power thinking. A difficult question followed. In a real conflict, after the first wave of missile strikes and cyber attacks, how many Alliance aircraft would actually still be able to fly? Not on paper, but in reality. The answers were unsettling. Modern war assumes early chaos, communications disrupted, GPS unreliable, command systems degraded. Any aircraft that needs everything to work perfectly becomes a risk. The Swedish concept accepts that things will go wrong and trains pilots to fight anyway. And that honesty may be its most powerful advantage. This difference in mindset matters more than technology. In many air forces, pilots are trained to depend on a constant flow of data, live targeting, sensor fusion, and full situational awareness. When that data stream is disrupted, performance drops quickly. The Swedish doctrine works differently. Data helps, but it isn't required. If networks fail, missions continue. If guidance disappears, pilots adapt. This isn't a step backward, it's a survival strategy. During war games, conditions were deliberately made worse. Communications were cut, satellites denied, and command structures disrupted. Instead of stopping operations, control was spread out. Pilots made decisions based on training and intent, not constant instructions. The results surprised observers. Flight rates stayed high, missions were still completed, losses remained within expected limits. That outcome unsettled planners because it exposed an uncomfortable truth. Heavy centralization can be a weakness. Inside NATO, the response was quiet but serious. No public announcements. Instead, internal reviews, simulations, and reports began questioning assumptions that had gone unchallenged for years. One question kept coming back. What if the next air war is won not by the most advanced aircraft, but by the one that can keep flying when everything else breaks? Cost made the issue even sharper. High-end fighters offer incredible capability, but they also depend on complex maintenance, specialized parts, secure software, and global supply chains. In peacetime, this works. In full-scale war, it becomes fragile. The Swedish approach trades individual prestige for endurance. More aircraft available, more pilots trained, faster turnaround, and less dependence on perfect logistics. In a long conflict, that trade-off could decide the outcome. There's also a political effect. Smaller nations using this model gain more independence because they rely less on external support to keep their air forces operating. They rely less on foreign contractors, overseas maintenance centers, and outside political approval to keep flying. That independence quietly shifts power inside alliances, and that is where the real concern lies, not on the battlefield, but in influence and control. If more countries start choosing resilience over complexity, the entire defense system begins to change. Buying strategies shift, training methods evolve, budgets face tougher questions. Expensive programs are no longer protected by reputation alone. They must prove they can survive in chaos. Pilots trained under this system reported something else that stood out: confidence. Not overconfidence, but calm assurance that even when isolated, they could still complete the mission. That mental edge matters. In war, morale often fails before equipment does. Critics point out that these aircraft cannot match top-tier stealth fighters in perfect conditions, and they're right, but that argument misses the larger point. Future wars are unlikely to offer perfect conditions to anyone. History supports this. Systems that dominate early often struggle later. Complexity turns into a weakness. Simplicity becomes an advantage. Adaptation matters more than perfection. That is why this development unsettled defense circles. Not because it guarantees victory, but because it exposed a blind spot. Traditional air power assumed secure bases, stable command systems, and technological control. This aircraft assumes disruption, surprise, and the need to keep operating anyway. It forces an uncomfortable question. What if the most dangerous aircraft isn't the one you can't see, but the one you can't stop, can't predict, and can't eliminate? That question is now spreading through strategy rooms around the world, and once it's asked, it can't be ignored. The shock isn't that one aircraft changed everything. It's that it revealed how much had already changed.